Okay, here we go. Hope you all are doing well. Hope we have a good evening and good afternoon. And we are going to get started here in just a second. So let me do a real quick check on things. Actually, hopefully, yeah, volume's up. Okay. Okay, let's see who we've got here. Oh, let me turn it on to all panelists and attendees. There we go. So now we can see each other's text messages. And so far, we got Alyssa, Betty, Doug, and Ricky, brand new. Hi, everybody. Welcome aboard. We're going to give everyone else a few more minutes to log in, and then we'll get started. Good to see all of you. Doug, good to see you especially. Hope you're doing well, you and Gwen. So tonight, guys, what we're going to do is this is a request that went back before the end of August. And that week, I think it was that week, whatever that Thursday night before, that would have been 31st, 30, 29, 20, the 27th, I think, of August, there was supposed to be a webinar, and I ended up traveling that day, as opposed to, yeah, so Wednesday, this is what we're going to do. We were going to do on Thursday, August 27th, which is how do we actually calculate, analyze, and calculate the correct price of a rental property. If we have time, we'll do flips too, but I want to just focus on how do you actually analyze and calculate the correct price for a rental property. And that was a request from several of the students, so we'll do that tonight. And if we have time, we could do the flipping analysis. We've done the analysis work before during the summer. What this is tying it all together, and you identify properties, you gather data, financial data on the property, you do desktop analysis, then you go look at the property, do physical analysis, and you subtract that from your maximum price to come up with what you should offer. So we're going to cover that tonight. I'd like to do some role playing if we have time, and maybe do the flipping part another day. I want to see if Chris is on, by the way, Chris Latham. Let's see. Hey, Melanie, how you doing? Good to see you. Tom, good to see you too, buddy. All right, I don't see Chris Latham. Guys, Chris had a question for the group about 2 weeks ago, which is he has properties in California and properties up in Idaho. And he and his wife, based on their current financial situation and their age, they're looking to position themselves for a maximum benefit going forward, like Social Security and the other sources of retirement income. So the question was, what did they sell first? Did they let his wife, who has more years to contribute to Social Security, get the listing so she earns the income from that? And of course, they get the capital gains from the sale. So I thought that would be an awesome exercise to do for the group. Great learning experience. But I want to make sure Chris is on. Obviously, we'll do that. We'll have to do that probably next week. Yeah, next week's webinar will be on Tuesday. So in any case, without further ado, let me just double check here. Hey, Sean, good to see you, buddy. Let's see, anybody else log in? Archie, good to see you. Hope things are going well for you out in Lake Havasu. So let's see, let's check the chat. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks, Betty. I appreciate that. And there was somebody posted something on all that in an hour. Yeah, I know, Alyssa. Hey, Alyssa, yeah, use the chat box. I don't mind using a QA, but help everybody use the chat box so I can stay focused on that. So that's why I'm thinking tonight. Let's do the rental scenario first and see where we go. That might take the entire hour. Okay. So let me reduce this. Oh, by the way, so Ricky, we do this every week. You'll get the schedule from Beverly. And always register for the webinars in advance, of course. That way, if you happen to miss one or two, which will likely happen in a year, you automatically get the recording the next day. She sends it out to everybody. Guys, I'm gonna close I'm actually at the ocean front right now, and what you just heard was a F-18 Hornet flyby. In the background, it's the waves crashing on the shore. So let's see. If they go by again, I'll shut the door, so it won't cause us any interference. In any case, every week you get the recording from Beverly the very next day, as well as other updates to the systems and platforms, the webinar schedule. So the October webinar schedule has just been determined. So we'll get that out in tomorrow's email. So look for that, and always stay in touch with Beverly through those emails because she gives you a lot of information on a weekly basis. So in any case, without further ado, what I want to do is pick up the discussion at the point where you've identified a property. So let's say you've done your marketing, you've done your research, and you've identified a property that may make sense for one of your investors to buy. And or maybe you're going to get the listing on the property and you have to gather information. So let's start with, you identify the property, in this case, a rental property, and you want to gather information, okay? So I use, oops, sorry, the other one, a due diligence checklist that I use for buying rental properties. And this works even for larger properties. So the key thing here, you want to write this down, is you want to gather as much financial information as you can on any rental property you're looking to list to sell, or you're looking to help one of your clients buy, or both in some cases, okay? So we always get the profit and loss for 3 years. This is going to be from their bookkeeping system. Some people do it manually, they have spreadsheets, but no matter what they say, they might say, I don't have P&L. Well, they do, because they have income, they have expense, they write checks for the expenses, and they deposit checks for the income, and they have to pay taxes, okay? So I know they have P&L. They might call it something else, but essentially it's profit and loss for 3 years. We also want their rent rolls for 3 years. This gives you the actual history of the rents coming in per unit, per client, or per tenant per unit. We want the actual leases for the 3 years. We want Schedule E from their tax return for the last 3 years. Schedule E isn't the entire return. It's just a portion of the return that identifies and presents the income and expense data to the IRS, okay? So I know they've got that. You're always going to you have to gather this information anyways, because whatever lender is going to be involved with the eventual sale is going to want this information. You might as well gather it right up front. Okay, all this other stuff you don't have to worry about for now. I'll make sure this document goes out tomorrow. Beverly will send that out. Okay. The rest of it's warranties, equipment list, insurance, title, things like that, all the vendor contracts. But for right now, for tonight, we're just discussing the financials. So let's say you gathered this information, you've got profit and loss for 3 years, okay? The next thing we're going to do, actually, let me just go back up here. Many of you have seen this. This is one of our favorite rental calculators, okay? It's a basic spreadsheet that shows you how to take in income and expense, and it gives you a lot of ratios and helps you determine the cap rate. But more importantly, it allows you to put in a single view all the income and expense for a related property. So I'm going to skip all of the purchase information and go right to the income and expense. So in this little box right, oh, hang on 1 second, guys. I got a feeling you can't see anything I'm showing you. So now you should be able to see anything I'm showing you. I didn't even have to read a text message. I had a feeling somebody was communicating with them. In any case, this box right here allows you to put in the income. So each line is a different type of unit. In other words, line 1 is 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom units. Line 2 is 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom units. Line 3 is 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom units. And you can expand this. Line 4 could be 4 bedrooms, in the case it's a garage. This column here says number of units. That's literally the number of 1 bedrooms you have, the number of 2 bedrooms you have, and so forth and so on. And you put in the rent for each of those types of units. 1 bedroom's rent for this amount, 2 bedrooms rent for that amount, so forth and so on. So it calculates the total rent coming in, okay? Now, we're gonna, whoops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to move that fast ahead. Now we'll drop down to the, by the way, anybody who's new to this, I'm not teaching this form tonight. I'm just gonna only go over the parts that we need for tonight's lesson. There's plenty of recorded webinars that go over how this calculator works. And then it's all on the, My Investment Services website in the resource section of the silver level area. In any case, here's the gross income coming in, and here's the expenses. You got property insurance, maintenance and repairs, water bills, all the usual things that go along with owning a rental property. And you've got total operating expenses. You subtract that from the gross receipts, and you get your net operating income. Okay, then you have your debt service, which is the 12 months of mortgage payments. Right? In other words, if you took this figure up here, $271.49, multiplied times 12, you would get $32.58. So what I want to do is, we always use this when we gather the financial data. What I'm going to show you now is a summary, okay? Let's go to the part where I actually sold this property. Whoops, sorry, it's back up here, going the wrong way. Okay, let me go down just a wee bit further. Okay, here we go. So we plug in the rents up here on a monthly basis. We calculate the annual rent flow coming in, cash flow coming in, that's gross. We put in the taxes. This is just a simple line item chart that we use to demonstrate how you calculate the value of a property, okay? So taxes go there, insurance goes here, maintenance and repairs, any expenses you have, water and management, okay? This is, by the way, what we call a pro forma. This is not an exact replica of a tax return. It's just a pro forma, okay? So in any case, these lines here, taxes, insurance, maintenance, repair, water, and management, that's all your expenses, and that should be on an annual basis, okay? So now you've got your gross rent up here, $12,000 on an annual basis, and you've got your gross net, you add up all these expenses, all right, and that's your expenses for the year. Now net operating income, if you took on an annual basis to 12,000 and you add all these up and subtract that, you'd end up with $6,902. $6,902 is the net operating income, which is your 12,000 gross income minus these 5 line items here. Okay, I didn't tally those up separately, but that's what it comes out to. So if you added these 5 up, taxes through management, added them up and divided by 12, you would get you'd be left with $575 per month, okay? So in any case, I set the price at $72,000. I'm going to show you how we calculate that. You guys, hang on 1 second. I'm going to shut my door because there's more F-18s flying around. Be back in 1 second. One of the neat things about living in a resort area that's near has a high military presence is you get to see your tax dollars at work. And I've seen, going back to the F-14s and F-16s, F-18s, F-22s, I got to go into some of those jets years before, and I worked at Langley Air Force Base, which was pretty neat. So in any case, back to this. I put 72,000, and that's not arbitrary. I'm going to show you how I arrived at that, okay? If you take the cap rate 9.5%. Now, what I did is I took a cap rate of about 10%, and I massaged it with my fingers. So let me show you that, okay? Let me go to this screen, calculator. So can you guys see this calculator on your screen now? Somebody could just do a hand raise, like, yes, I can see the calculator. Or if you can't, just type in a, okay, good, we're in good shape. Thanks, guys. All right, I know my net operating income, going back here, is 6,902, okay? 6,902, right? That's on an annual basis, net operating income. I'm going to divide that, okay? Where's my division button? There it is. By the cap rate, which is 9.5%. So I'm going to type in 0.95, all right? And hit the enter key. And there it is, 72, whoops, did it wrong. Hang on 1 second, let me go back here. Let's do all clear. Sorry about that, 6,902 divided by 0.095. Hit the equal key. Then you get 72,652. A little bit more than 72,000. So the big lesson here is, let's say you're analyzing a property, okay? I want to go back to this one right here. And you want to see what would be a good price for it. We know the cap rate as advertised on this specific property is 9.5%. Well, let's say the prevailing cap rate for the area is 10%, okay? And you wanted to find out, and all you knew was there was the net operating income. All you had was income and expense. And a perfect example would be a property you're looking at to list. So it's not advertised for sale yet, so you don't know what the asking price is yet. You have to help the owner calculate that. This is the same process you use. You calculate the net operating income. You find out what the prevailing rate is for the area. Let's say the prevailing rate's 10%. Let's do a clear all and start over again. So 6902 divided by 0.1. And if you did that, which is 10% cap rate, then the price should be $69,000, okay? I put 72,000 because I knew the prevailing rate there just happened to be right about 9.5%. So in any case, so far the steps are this. You gather the financial data, right? You calculate your net operating income. Okay, let's go back here. Right here, 6902. If it's a new, you're going to get a listing, so you got to determine the price. You would divide that by the prevailing cap rate for the area. In this case, let's just say it's 9.5%. You come up with a price of 72,000. Now, we're not done yet, okay? You need to also do, if that's desktop analysis, you need to also do physical analysis on the property. Now, before we take another step here, let me see if there's any questions that have come in. So hang on just one second. Now this stuff I'm showing you is kind of basic, but if anybody is uncertain at all, please just type in a message. I mean, we've only got about a dozen people on. We can easily do, I can unmute everybody too. Okay, so if you're okay so far, I want to go ahead and move forward here, all right? But we do have one coming in. Hang on one second. Tom Sebastian, how do you get the prevailing cap rate? So what I would do, Tom, is, I mean, literally, I'll just show you. If I'm in an area that I'm not familiar with, I would just type in here prevailing cap rate on residential rentals. Whoops, that stinks. Rentals in, let's say, Detroit, Michigan, okay? Now, most commercial outfits haven't published the prevailing cap rates, okay? So cap rates for apartment multifamily properties in Detroit. Let's just see what it says. And it might make us jump through some hoops to get this, so we'll have to see. Multifamily cap rates. Okay, let's see. Cap rates multifamily apartment complexes relatively flat. 2019, averaging 4.6 for New York luxury metro, 4.87 for Class A, 5.24 for Class B, and 6.02 for Class C. And that sounds like that may be more of a all around. I don't know if that's just in Detroit. That seems like that's more national. But also, Tom, if you go to Marcus and Millichap, and you go in here and click on research. See, Marcus and Millichap, they're known for the multifamily guys, as being the multifamily guys, all right? So if you go into here, I think it's services. Oh, research, I'm sorry, here it is, research. Click on research. They're going to make you leave your set up an account or log in a password or something. I'm not going to do that here, but you can post a question. Actually, this is property search, it looks like. Well, there's all kinds of reports and research. Let me just do accept here. All right. Get market insights. There's all kinds of reports. You can search by area, property type, and in these you'll get like prevailing cap rates, right? You could even post a question, prevailing cap rates, and they'll give that to you. So in any case, so lots of resources to get the information. The main thing is just Google, and you'll find it for any area you want. Okay. So let's go back here, and all right. I've got one more thing to show you. Hang on one second. And here it is right here. Okay, hopefully, I think you should be able to see this because I did a share all, so you should be able to see this. It's property rehabilitation analysis form. So can you, if you wouldn't mind, guys, give me a quick hand raise or something. Let me know you can see this screen. That would be great. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off. We've done the desktop analysis. We gathered financial data. We can determine based on paper what the property should be worth. Okay. But chances are the property's got deferred maintenance. It may need some capital improvements. It may have basic routine maintenance and repairs. Either way, we got to determine them and add them up. So we use this form, and this form is on the Real Estate with Gary Wilson website. So I don't think I still have that up anymore. Nope, I don't have it up anymore. But all you do is you go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, click on members area, log in, right? You got to go through your dashboard, then click on silver. On the left-hand side, go down to forms and calculators, and that's where this form is. And you can see it's in, I'm not going to edit it tonight, but it's Word document, so it's the editable form, right? In any case, when you go through the property, this is probably your client's going to do this with your assistance. They're going to start adding everything up. Remember, they've already done the property information form. Remember the property information form? That's what your client does first, to identify all the items that need to be addressed as far as deferred maintenance or capital improvements or maintenance or routine maintenance and repairs. Property information form identifies everything. Property rehab analysis form puts prices on those items and adds them all up. So you can see up here there's some cost accounting fees, insurance, loan fees, points. All these are costs associated with purchasing a property. Then we go down here to the actual physical cost, the cost of putting in a new stove, a new refrigerator, a new microwave, so forth. Lighting in the bedrooms, painting, carpeting, water softener, water heater, HVAC, electrical, it's all in there, plumbing. All these items, your roofing, windows, doors, all right? You add all of those up, okay? Add all that up. And for the sake of today's class, you don't really need to account for the acquisition cost, closing costs, points, things like that. That's separate. What we're going to account for here is simply the cost of modifying the physical building, either long-term capital improvements, which you capitalize and depreciate over time, or expenses you take in the current year, changing light bulbs, cleaning, minor repairs and things like that. All of that, right? You would take that and subtract that from the 72,000. If we assume the properties were 72,000 with no maintenance and repairs and no capital improvements, that's what we would offer and pay. Okay. Now, assuming every property is going to have some repairs and some deferred maintenance, you would add that up, subtract that from the 72,000, and that becomes what you should pay for the property. So let's say, the property needs, new kitchen, new roof, and some odds and ends, and it comes to $20,000. You would literally subtract the $20,000 from the 72, come up with 52,000, and that's what you should pay for the property. What I just described there, that's the process you go through determining the offer price. Unfortunately, a lot of people make the mistake on rentals of trying to determine what market value is. What we did is we actually determined what's called the income approach. So just a quick little caveat here, and most of you know this, but there's three types of appraisals. There's the market approach, the income approach, and the cost approach, okay? So on rentals, where the properties are theoretically in service, they show income and expense and all that. We use the income approach, but you have to determine what your immediate capital outlay is, because that's reflected in the value of the property, the physical property itself. You have to subtract that. And unfortunately, what a lot of people do is they'll try to do the market approach to valuation and make the basis of their offering price solely on that information. That's not correct. I know most appraisers will, on a small multi to 2 to 4 units, they will calculate market value, and they also calculate the other two, income approach and cost approach. What really matters to an investor is, I don't really care so much what the neighbor's house sold for. I'm buying this for income, right? What I care about is the income approach, and so do most other investors. So in any case, you calculate the net operating income, calculate the cap rate, or determine the cap rate for the area, determine that the price on paper as if nothing needs to be done to it, then you subtract the cost of improvements and repairs. And if you follow that formula, you'll never make well, I shouldn't say that, never. You dramatically reduce your chances of making a ill-advised offer, okay? And this is really important. Most people, for some odd reason, particularly as agents, don't do this. We just say, you know what, they're asking $72,000 and the income looks pretty good. It's showing a 9% cap rate. I think you should do it, okay? And they go in there and they see all these maintenance and repairs, and they assume, well, that's just part of the ownership. You're going to have to take care of those things. Well, I know I'm going to have to take care of them, but I'm going to account for that in my purchase price. So I just want to really push that point home there. And if we could, let's do a quick pause and see if we have any questions. Let me go. I knew I saw some. What the heck here, chat? Oh, here we go. So Doug says, how many sellers understand cost approach? Very, very few, Doug. So cost approach, guys, is literally it's what it would take to actually build a similar property. So let's say you got a duplex over here and a vacant lot over here, and the existing duplex is showing a cap rate of 10%, and they're gonna, you know, based on the area and the rents and all that, they're gonna try to sell it for $100,000. Okay, maybe they're making $10,000 a year net operating income. Remember, you still got to pay the debt service out of that. It's not like you get to keep the whole $10,000. But in any case, so there's a vacant lot down the street. Somebody else wants to build a duplex. Now they might mistakenly think, well, heck, that thing's going for $100,000. Maybe I can build another duplex for $100,000 over here. Not necessarily true. Cost approach is based on the cost per square foot of actually building a new building from scratch on raw land. But income approach is more important than cost approach, and that's why we focus on the income approach. Income approach is more easy to determine. We have, as long as we gather all the financial data, we have everything we need to do that. Okay. So in any case, you guys are being awfully quiet tonight. That's okay. Well, you know, we got about a half hour to go, but I know Doug knows this, and probably I bet Melanie knows this too, and maybe I bet Tom knows this. What I just showed you there, unfortunately, is not followed a lot, but it actually is the correct way to evaluate and determine an offer price on rentals. And I learned that early on. Thank goodness I had a mentor, Gerhard Flugfelder, an old German guy. He was probably, when I met him, 72 years old, and I worked with him for a good couple of years. And then I moved on, started buying bigger properties, and kind of surpassed him, which is good. Every mentor wants a student to pass him. Well, I went and looked at a property one time. It was like a 19-unit apartment complex, and lo and behold, Gerhard was still there. I mean, he was still owned them. He was still working on them. When I met him, guys, 72 years old, he was still pulling refrigerators upstairs. I mean, the guy was amazing, and didn't have any debt. He owned everything outright. It was amazing. But in any case, enough of storytelling for tonight. If you're okay, do you want me to go ahead and move into how you do the same thing for flips? Well, let's see. Tom has a question. So which cap rate before we deduct the rehab costs? Yeah. So Tom, let's assume we're looking at a property to list, right? It's not for sale. We want to list it. We want to determine what the sale price would be. That's where you would determine the prevailing cap rate for the area, okay, and apply that, and that would be the cap rate you would use to determine the price. Now let's switch gears, and let's say you're looking at one to buy, and it's already advertised and listed for sale, and based on their income and expense, they're showing you, and the price, they're showing you a 10% cap rate. So let me go back to that calculator, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so let me clear this. Clear all. So let's say we have a property that's showing, let's just use the same numbers, 6902 net operating income. So we know that. We know that they're asking $72,000 for the property. So let's divide the net operating income by the sales price, which is $72,000. And you'll see the cap rate that property is showing is 9.5%. So it's just a three variable formula, and you can interchange what you divide by, but you don't change what you divide into. You always divide the net operating income either by the cap rate to determine the price or by the price to determine the cap rate for that specific property. So Tom, what I just did there, that's the cap rate showing for that specific property. It doesn't mean it's the prevailing cap rate for the area. It's just what that property is showing. Okay, so a quick little dialogue on investors. You can always tell a seasoned investor because they don't use cap rate. They use cash on cash return. Okay, they use cap rate to determine is the property in range of what's prevailing for the market. So 9.5% is within the range of a 10% cap rate, for example. But most investors, cap rate just like a guide just tells them, yeah, this property is in the range, or no, it's not. Cash on cash return is what they use to determine how they can profit on this property. So let me go back to that spreadsheet here. So you see here on this property, Tom, the cash on cash return for this property at the time of sale was 16%. The way you determine that is you don't use net operating income, you don't use 6902, and you don't use the purchase price of 72,000. What you use is the cash return, because you have to now deduct from your net operating income your debt service, which is $376.17 per month. So if you multiply that times 12, subtract it from 6902, you're left with 2388, what's called a cash return. You still have to pay taxes on that, but that's your true cash in pocket return pre-tax, okay? Well, you take that 2388 and divide it by what you put into the property, in this case, down payment. So let's assume for the sake of argument, there is no capital outlay. You don't need a new roof. There's no deferred maintenance. It's just a straight move-in condition. So we need to determine cash on cash return. You take the 2388, which is your monthly your annual cash return in your pocket, divided by what you put into the property, not the price. So it's 2388 divided by 15,000. So let's go do that. Okay, divided by 15,000. And you'll see that's just a hair shy of 16%, 1592. Just a hair shy of 16%, okay? So if we go back here, that's what I said, cash on cash return is 16%. But let's do this, Tom. Let's say we're going to reduce the down payment and we're going to increase the loan amount. So let's say we're only going to put down $10,000, but now our loan amount is going to be $62,000, which means our monthly payment, let's say that goes up 24 bucks. Let's say the monthly payment goes to 400. That will be 4,800 for the year. So 6902 minus 4,800 is 1102. Is that right? That can't be right. No, sorry, 2102. Woo, excuse me, 2102 divided by 10,000. Let's see what that does. 2102 divided by 10,000. So now our cash on cash return is 2102 because we have a higher loan payment, and we've only put down 10,000, so we're going to divide by 10,000. And you can see our our cash on cash return goes to 21%. Here's why this is important. Remember I said real investors use cash on cash return? Because real investors know we can manipulate cash on cash return by raising the down payment, lowering the down payment, raising the loan amount, lowering the loan amount, maybe increasing the term, going from 15 years to 20 years or 20 years to 30 years. All those things affect cash on cash return. So while to most novices, they might say, well, 72,000 is too much. In a really tight market, really good investors will say, I really don't care what the guy's asking for. I mean, they do, but it's relative to other factors. and I'm not going to put down, 15,000. I'm going to put down only 5,000 or 10,000. So in other words, cash on cash return can be manipulated based on the structuring of the deal. Okay, cap rate is cap rate. You can't change a cap rate, right? Whoever owns it, their cap rates are cap rate. The market, the cap rate's a cap rate for the market. But cash on cash return is property specific, and you can absolutely manipulate that. So when I bought this property, by the way, guys, this is one of my old properties. I didn't get just 16% cash on cash return. Let me show you what I got. Whoops, let me go down one more line here. Look at that. I only put down 5,000. I only paid 42 for it, right? My interest rate was higher. My term was longer, okay? My cash on cash return was higher, 34.79. You divide 34.79 by my down payment, 5,000 bucks. I got a whopping 70% cash on cash return. That's why I bought the property. I wasn't going to put down, 8,000. This was owner financing, by the way. So real quick test here. Let me just do a quick question for you. Just type in your answer in the chat box. Let me go to the chat box here. Somebody's saying, I thought I had share screen on for the whole thing. Okay, so you should be able to see that. I don't know why that stopped, but here's the screen I was showing you. I paid 42 for it, gave it, an attorney owned it. She just wanted 5,000 down, actually borrowed money for that on a personal line of credit. She financed the other 37 at 8% for 30 years with a 10-year balloon. And I sold it basically 11 years later, but you saw what I sold it for later on. So in any case, Sean Ritchie, do you go through the same process with the property inspection report and rehab analysis where you're listing or buying? I do. So Sean, the process I just showed you, I go through whether I'm listing a property or whether I'm helping a client buy a property. It's the same exact process. The only difference is I'm either determining what the listing price should be, or I'm determining what the sale price should be. And I can always tell a good veteran, seasoned investor on the listing side too, because they're more realistic. The ones who like shoot for the moon, they're just hoping and wishing there's some fool out there who's going to waste their money. And what I do in those scenarios, I always ask them, say, look, you're a smart person. You already bought this property, made money on it, looking to sell it now. Would you pay what you're asking for that property? In most cases, they would say no, because they're not foolish with their money. And I say, well, do you really believe that the rest of the world is foolish with their money, or people who invest like you and I do are a little bit more sophisticated with their money and will probably pay what the property is actually worth? And then I can, sometimes convince them to have a more reasonable list price for the property. But occasionally we get somebody who just doesn't care. They just want to put it out there, and I'm like, you're gonna stigmatize the property. And you've all seen that. When somebody goes in too high, the property sits there, and then you start dropping the price, and you end up dropping it lower than you think should have been listed for to begin with. Okay, so Tom is asking, what if the investment property is on a large lot and the land has significant value? Well, it depends on, you're welcome, Sean, thank you. So Tom, it really depends on what's the highest and best use for the property. In other words, that land might not be able to have anything else built on it. It's just a big lot. And it'll have some appeal. I mean, some people renting do want a big yard, but if it's not able to be subdivided or split in any way, the land is just the land. It doesn't really, and it might add appeal, but it'll have some impact on the price, right? It adds some value, but remember, if it's not showing an income, remember, land doesn't show income. It's the improvement on the land that shows the income. You take that improvement away, you take a property, knock it down, the land is just a land, and it's just a vacant lot. So it has to have an improvement on it to show income. And based on what we discussed earlier, that's what investors want to see, is they want to see the income. So in any case, long story short, depends on the highest and best use for the property and what the intention is of the new buyer. If it's able to be subdivided, Yeah, I mean, I bought property like that. We call it a sidecar. Like we would have two lots next together, sometimes already subdivided, but it's under the same ownership. Um, uh, Two different, if you look up the properties, two different parcels, okay? Um, so we will buy them together and then go through the approval process with the city to build. We built garages, all kinds of stuff, So by the way, one quick note here. There, for a while there, back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, the market was hot. It was before the big recession. And some cities around the country were changing their zoning for downtown areas, city areas. Some of them, it's just weird how they did it, but they would take multi-unit properties, like a 4-unit, which would be R4 residential 4-unit. That residential codes are uniform across the country. Commercial codes are not. For residential codes, I'll start with R. Let's say it was a R4 residential 4-unit, and you also have density, high, medium, and low. High density would mean you can pack more people into that area. Low density would mean they're going to restrict how many people they let in there and how much building they allow, right? So what they were doing was they were changing the zoning. They would go from the R4, like they would say, well, no more R4s. We're now going to have only R2s allowed to be built there. And if you had an R4 for the building, you were grandfathered. But the reality is, let's say you had a double lot, we call a sidecar, and you wanted to build another fourplex. If you did it the year before, you could have built it. If you waited a year, you couldn't build it. You'd have to build a duplex, right? Another thing they did was they changed the density. They would go from high density to low density. And again, existing properties would be grandfathered, but the density has to do with how many people per square mile, right? So that might completely, when they change the density, that could completely stop development in its tracks, right? Whereas you change the R, the zoning, like how many units per property, that doesn't mean they're going to stop the building. They're just going to stop any more fourplexes from being built, for example. But again, you change the density factor, and you'll see that happen. Now sometimes they'll raise it. They'll go from low density to high density. If there's a real need for housing, they will either up the R factor, residential 2-unit to residential 4-unit, for example, or they'll increase the density from low to medium or medium to high, and you'll see more development in there. And those are good opportunities to get in and buy some land. So Tom, back to your original question. Sorry for the long diatribe here, but it really pays to be dialed in to a municipality and what their plans are for the future. And you can find out by just going downtown and asking them, say, can you please show me the plot plans or the plat plans for the next 3, 10, or 30 years? You can usually go out 3, 10, or 30 years, and they'll pull them up, big giant maps, and they'll show you what they're doing. Or they might actually have something going through city council at the time to change density or change their the number of units per property. And you can find out what the status is on that, or what they're looking at. Are they going up or are they going down? So if they're going up in density, Tom, I might buy some land, right? Because I know I can build on it. I would never buy land just for the sake of having land and hoping that something in the future will happen, or all of a sudden there'll be a new town developed there. I wouldn't do that. I would not guess. I would definitely look at the zoning plans coming up in the future. Famous Pittsburgh Steelers running back Franco Harris was known for that. He's a great business person, real good guy for the community. He's a good businessman, and he learned that. I talked to him one time at a football game, and I also knew his reputation. And he had a knack for picking things out well before anybody else. He bought an old rundown hotel one time that they couldn't give that thing away, and he bought it. And the reason he bought it was that area, that neighborhood, was just given a $10 million grant for gentrification. And he knew it when the discussion started. He went ahead and went on a limb and bought the property. And turns out it was the only old hotel between Pittsburgh and Monroeville. Anybody knows the Pittsburgh area, you know what I'm talking about. And that property was completely gutted and rehabbed. He didn't do the work. He sold that to the investor who bought it. for about 10 times what Franklin paid for it, all because he studied the zoning and tracked everything. He knew where the grant money was going. So in any case, sorry for the long answer there. Let's do this. You guys want me to show you real quick on the flipping, how you do the flipping? You guys want me to show you that? Just type in okay, real easy. All right, the first thing you do, let's say you've done your school report, you know the areas that make the most sense for flipping, okay? And you go to find a couple of properties and you identify some, all right? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to determine what is the ARV for the area. I don't know if I got any documents up to demonstrate ARV. Hang on one second. Let me go to the website. Hopefully it'll take me right there. Members area. I'll show you where you can find this in your material. Okay, dashboard, real estate investor agent. I go to module 5, I think is the one for flipping. Minority property desktop and launch sign agency agreement. Let's pull down the PDF. I think this is the right one. Ah, this is it. Bingo. Okay. So this is a module 5 of the investor agent training program. Okay. First things first, you have to determine what's called the ARV, after repair value. So what this is if a property is in move-in condition, marketable condition, that doesn't have a lot of deferred maintenance, it's ready to go onto the market, that's your ARV. It's synonymous with the income approach evaluation, or what appraisals call, the most reasonable price of property for sale for, ARV. You want to write that in stone. You don't budge from that number. Whatever it is, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes in your neighborhood that they're selling for $300,000, that's your ARV. Okay. So the trick is to find properties in that area that you can buy for less than $300,000, obviously, right? But the main thing is this. I'm going to show you how this works, right? So you got your ARV. You go through, I'm not going to go through all this. We went over this a few months ago. How do you actually work with flippers and determine the property that they're going to buy? That's the whole process there. Okay. Now you do as much desktop analysis as you can. You know the ARV for the area. Let's say you've done your analysis. So we go back to that form here. Sorry. You do the information form first, property information form, then you do this property rehab form, add up all the costs for the rehab to do the rehab project, okay? Then you go back here, and I'm going to scoot down to the big part, the main part that is, okay? And here you go. So you take the ARV. Now, as a general rule, people always ask me, what do flippers generally expect as far as a return goes? The standard answer is 20%. Well, why do I have 30% here? The reason I have 30% is 20% is going to be profit, 10% is going to be overhead. There's carrying cost when you flip a property. You got to pay the light bill and the water bill and the gas bill. You got to have property insurance, property taxes. And when you go to sell it, you got to pay a realtor a commission, right? So let's just say, oh, that's 10%. 10% plus 20% profit equals 30%. So right off the bat, let's say the property was 300, we believe would be worth $300,000 after repair, after all remodeling, okay? And $300,000, 30% of that is 90,000, right? 30% of 300,000 is 90,000. Well, that leaves you with 210,000. That's the most you could pay for the property if it had no need for any remodeling. Well, chances are it will. Let's say that's another 30,000. So you would subtract another 30,000 off the remaining 210,000, okay? And you'd be left with 180,000. That's your maximum allowable offer. So let me go to the calculator and do that on the calculator so it'll make sense. We got all kinds of stuff going on here. Hang on a second. Let me go back here. There it is. Okay. So let me clear the screen. So again, ARV is 300,000, right? We're gonna subtract. We're gonna multiply that times 30%. So times 0.3. All right. Actually, let's do times 0.7. Excuse me. We're going to subtract 30% times 7, and that gives you 210,000. So right now we've subtracted our profit margin and our overhead by 210,000. We determine there's 30,000 in remodeling that has to be done, so subtract 30,000, and that equals 180,000. That's your maximum allowable offer, MAO. The key thing to remember here is this. There it is. There's two values we do not budge from. We have to make sure ARV is correct. Either you, the agent, or your investor has to know the area. I think it should be you. You got to be good on your evaluation for the area, so you know what a good ARV is. And we absolutely never budge off the MAO. We might subtract a few points less to give us some negotiating room when the market is, a little bit soft. But right now, guys, when the market is like it is, it's just demand far exceeds supply. You're not going to have any wiggle room. You might just want to offer flat out your MAO, maximum allowable offer. The point I'm trying to make here is we never violate the MAO. We never go above it. We never go above MAO. Now, having said that, I'm going to give you one or two other strategies you can use in a really good area that's going through gentrification. Really good flippers know this. They won't just look for all the bankruptcies and foreclosures and probate sales. They'll look for decent older properties that maybe were the first built in the neighborhood, and the folks living there raised their kids are grown and gone, and they're in their 70s or 80s, and they're looking to maybe downsize or move somewhere. And the property has an older kitchen, and it has older carpeting and things like that. What we'll do is we'll try to get the property 10% off of prevailing rates for that type of property, off of ARV. Knowing there's not a lot of wiggle room, but we also know we can push the market by 10% by making some really good improvements. And I'll give you some examples. Bamboo, believe it or not, is a very desirable product. I've seen houses where the ceiling was bambooed, the flooring is bamboo, the walls are bamboo, not all at the same time, but actually, no, I have seen that. They would take out the ceiling, make a raised ceiling, have that bamboo with a tropical fan hanging down. That's one thing you can do. Another thing is this, having a deck out the back that's zero clearance from whatever room that's off of, then tiered down multiple levels down to the ground, called multi-tier decking, to zero clearance on the ground, level 2. That's a big selling feature, all right? Also, new siding, believe it or not, brings a lot of return on your investment. And everybody's always thinking kitchens and bathrooms, and that's always true, but these other little things, like opening up rooms. My son just did this. My son just bought a house, about 50 years old, was a tri-level, and I told him, I saw the pictures, I said, I'll tell you what, knock down the kitchen walls, open that up so it's open to the dining area and the living room area so people can see and talk to each other, have a half wall with a countertop, and place is phenomenal. Did an awesome job. I wonder who taught him how to do that. But in any case, open up walls, take an older home, make it new by opening up walls, doing that multi-tier decking, use something like bamboo, not all over the place, just one room or something, and then you can push the market by 10%, okay? So if you imagine there, we just gave ourselves a 20% margin, and I know we got overhead, but if flippers are willing to flip in the kind of market we're in, they have to make those kind of concessions. I generally would stick to the tried and true methods myself. However, I work with flippers who've done what I just described there. So in any case, guys, that's really how you determine what price to offer on a flip. Now, if you're looking to sell a house that you think could be a good flip candidate, you can use the same information and tell the seller, look, the only person that's going to buy this is going to be an investor, and they're going to have a profit margin in there. Okay, so you need to be prepared when you price accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in limbo, and the house will just sit there. The The owner occupants won't want it. The investors won't want it. So you're going to decide, are you going to appeal to investors? You're going to appeal to owner occupants. If you appeal to owner occupants, you've got to do the remodeling because people don't want to spend all that kind of money, you know? So in any case, just food for thought there. Let me check the chat box here and see how we're doing. Okay, you guys okay then? We'll do role playing. I'm going to call Chris and see if he can be on next week so we can use him as a case study for what the best approach is for him to list his properties with he and his wife. They're both agents. They're both on the team actually, which is good. Oh, for the GIA team, anybody that's on the Global Investor Agent team, remember next week we had the regular investor agent session on Tuesday night, and Thursday night there is a GIA team only session next Thursday night because we're kicking off the development of the investor groups. And anybody who's not on the team and you want to create your own workshop, I'm going to give you the basic information for creating a workshop. So if you want to kind of follow along with what we're doing, you can do that. You just won't be able to be part of the network when we network all the groups together. And there's other benefits to all that, but the basic stuff is in your training, and I'm regardless, I'll help you do that too if that's what you want to do. So in any case, guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening and great rest of the week. I hope you had an awesome Labor Day weekend. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. And if you have questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to call or email. Oh, one more quick thing. Not next week, the week after, I'll be at a family reunion with my family in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We go up to four-wheel drive territory where there's no roads. You have to drive on the beach to get to your house, wild horses and all that. Very poor Wi-Fi and very poor phone reception. So I'm not going to schedule my regular daily calls, but I will make myself available. So if you do have something urgent, please let me know. Text me, call me, email me, and I'll find time during the day to get back to you. I don't want to have you risk a transaction because you're going to get a hold of me. So even when I'm on vacation, I don't mind supporting you guys. I just won't have the regularly scheduled calls. So anyway, take care of yourselves and your families. Let me know if you need anything. If you haven't had a strategy call for a while, please use the link, set up a strategy call, and let's hope you take another step forward. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop sharing and stop the recording.